Am I the a-hole to inform my husband that I would divorce him if he continues to defend my brother? My husband and I, 29, have been together since high school, and we were introduced by my brother. We have a beautiful 4-year-old daughter who adores Emma, my brother's ex-wife. My brother and Emma had been together for around 4 years. She is an incredible delight to be with, bringing out the best in him. Our entire family cherished her. At times, I felt like my parents loved her more than us, and the same was true for my daughter. Emma was a fairy princess to her, and every time we went to pick her up, she would cry and urge us to go home and come back tomorrow because she wanted to be with Aunt Emma. Anyway, Emma was 26 weeks pregnant, 6 months, and we were all looking forward to it. My brother and she had always wanted a baby and seemed overjoyed whenever we visited them. She would have been an amazing mother. Emma had been feeling bad and her stomach hurt, so she requested my brother to drive her to the hospital, where the doctors said everything was all right and sent her home. She kept saying that she didn't feel right, but my brother dismissed it as her overreacting. The next day, my brother, husband, and their friends went for a fishing trip. Emma urged my brother not to go since she didn't feel right and needed someone to be with her. My brother became mad, telling her to quit overreacting, that everything isn't about her, and that he needed some alone time. He turned off his phone and proceeded on the trip. Emma called me crying and asked if I could come over because her stomach hurt. By the time I arrived, she was half conscious on a bloody floor. I rushed her to the hospital where they told us they required her husband's signature to carry out the operation. There was a lot of bickering. Although they saved her life, we lost the baby. She woke up screaming and weeping, asking where her child and husband were. It was horrible. Both my parents and her parents were in tears when they saw her. I kept calling the guys, but none of them responded. When Emma finally calmed down, it was even more unsettling. It was as if she had given up, with no soul left in her eyes. My brother returned the next day to an empty, bloody apartment, ran to the hospital, and apologized to Emma while crying. She looked at him with no feelings and asked for a divorce. My brother grew depressed after that, and he would spend his days drinking in the baby's nursery. None of us really consoled him. I suppose we all blamed him in some way. My husband went to meet him, and when he returned, he told me about the above and asked that I apologize to my brother for neglecting him and go console him. I refused. He got angry with me and blamed Emma for the miscarriage, claiming that if she was truly ill, she should have gone to the hospital rather than making a scene, and that my brother is suffering as a result of her idiotic decision. He kept defending my brother, stating that it wasn't his fault that he wanted some alone time before the baby and so on. I couldn't take it any longer, so I told him that if he kept defending my brother, I would divorce him. I took my daughter and left for my parents' home. It's been 2 days and neither of us has tried talking. I'm not sure if I behaved like an a-hole. Recalling all he said, I believe I should at least console my brother. I suppose I wanted opinions. Edit. Prior to performing any life-threatening surgery, the hospital requires the patient to sign a waiver. These paperwork can be signed by the patient or their family. Because Emma was not conscious enough, they required her husband's signature. I was alone and confused, and it was a lot. The hospital agreed after much discussion, but it really caused a lot of unnecessary delay. Info. It was a one-night trip, and they travelled to a cabin where they claimed there was no cell service. They did not think that there would be no network.
AITA for telling my husband that I see him as a liability and not a partner? Sorry for the long post, it's 2 a.m. and I'm crying, tired, and worn out. If I'm rambling, it's because I've held this in for so long, not wanting to burden friends or family with my marital troubles. I, 34F, have been with my husband, 37M, we'll call him Nathan, for 8 years. Ever since our daughter, 3F, was born, I have been unable to trust Nathan with anything, no matter how small. Background context: when I was 19, a semi-truck driver fell asleep at the wheel and turned my car into scrap metal with me inside it. I have enough metal holding me together that I light up like a Christmas tree for TSA and am physically impaired with good days and bad days. I used a portion of my settlement check to buy a house outright and have it retrofitted to accommodate my needs, as I'll eventually require a wheelchair. I work in software development because it's fun, and nobody cares if I work from bed on bad days. My husband has not worked in 5 years, which has been fine until our daughter was born. Between the settlement money, a paid-off house, and my salary, I enjoyed having him here with me. He contributed by handling most of the domestic duties. We pay for a weekly cleaner with monthly deep cleaning because it gave us more time together. Ever since our daughter was born, it was like a light switch turned off in his head. For our daughter, he would buy the wrong size diapers, not fully mixed bottles, put diapers on backward, leave out poop-covered wipes, and forget to latch cabinets. This past week, he has gone to the store 3 times because he keeps coming home with the wrong size socks and shoes for her. I eventually just ordered the right ones on Amazon. For me, he has tried to help me with my weekly pill organizer fill-up and has several times spilled the contents of new medications all over the floor, then not seeing that he didn't get all of them off the floor. He has repeatedly brought me grapefruit juice to take my medications with, a huge no. He has repeatedly forgotten that I can't have dairy and puts milk in my coffee or cheese on a burger. He has broken so many things of mine from being careless. He shattered my laptop because it slipped out of his hand when he tried to pack it for a trip, even after I said I would pack my own electronics. We've lost so many spoons and forks to the disposal. He tried to replace the head gasket in my car and over-torqued the engine bolt, which shattered inside the block, and 2 different shops said they couldn't repair it. We ended up getting a new vehicle because a replacement engine would have cost $11,000. A week later, he crashed the new car into the garage door because he thought he'd pressed the brake, not the accelerator. He wanted to do TikToks and streaming as a hobby. I supported him initially. But I quickly noticed a pattern. Anything regarding our daughter or me, he was sloppy and careless. He never whoopsed his own stuff. He would build entire sets to stream or make videos with, leave the garage, and leave his brain in the garage. It came to a head 4 nights ago. He streamed himself building a new set piece. 9 hours straight. Meanwhile, I worked, clocked out early to pick up our daughter from summer camp, cooked and fed both of us, and got her ready for bed. He came out to help put her to bed. I let him know that I needed to get some work done and would be in my office. I asked him to take the trash out. He said he would. 2 hours later, I left my office and the house felt really warm. He'd taken the trash out but left our front door partially open. He was back in the garage with his game volume really loud. I panicked since our daughter is able to get out of bed, and thankfully she was sound asleep. But she could have easily toddled right out of the house, and he wouldn't have noticed. Then I noticed a stovetop burner was on with a small pot on it with nothing inside. I didn't use the stove for cooking that night. I popped my head into the garage and said, "Hey, I need you for a minute." I informed him of the door situation, and he responded, "I thought I locked it." We checked the camera, and no, he did not. I asked about the burner being on, and he said he was planning to make ramen and forgot. He pulled the still hot pot off the burner and put it straight into the sink on top of our daughter's favorite plastic plate, which is now ruined. I'll admit I overreacted and screamed, "What are you doing?" He realized what he'd done and pulled the pot off our daughter's plate and straight onto the countertop. I grabbed it quickly and ran it under water to cool it down. I told him I couldn't tonight. I couldn't deal with him. I was taking my meds and going to sleep. He got a cup from the cupboard and set it straight onto the burner that had been on. I hit my limit. I started crying. He kept saying that it was fine, things happen, it's just an accident, he's had a rough day from streaming, he's just tired. Why am I crying? It's just a cup. We can replace it. The anger hit, and I said, "It's because I have a liability and not a partner." He said, "What the fuck does that mean?" I screamed that it's because I can't trust him to do anything. That I'm always having to watch him like a child. Always having to bear the costs of his mistakes. That every time I get careless and think I can trust him to be an adult, I'm always the one getting fucked over. I then said, I can't see you as a partner anymore. You're just another liability in my checkbook. He immediately stormed out of the kitchen and went to bed. I called my mom and told her what happened. She thinks it's just stress and offered to take our daughter for a week so we could figure this out without our daughter seeing it. She says it was an asshole thing to call my husband a liability. In the morning, I told my husband that my mom would pick up our daughter from summer camp and offered to watch her for a week. He said okay, and that's the only interaction we've had since. He spends all day in the garage playing games with his friends, making TikToks, and streaming. For food, he's been ordering DoorDash and having the person deliver it in the garage. It's been days, and he refuses to be in the same room as me. I've tried messaging him to ask if we can talk or figure out a solution. But he's just left me on read. If I pop into the garage, he ignores me but apologizes to his friends or viewers for the interruption and unmutes his mic when the noise stops. Before the blow-up, I've asked if there was something going on. I tried to gently respond every time he screwed up so our daughter didn't associate mistake with anger. I asked him to schedule with a doctor to see if something was going wrong medically. He always said I was overreacting, people make mistakes, and didn't see an issue, even when the same mistakes kept happening. When I tried to get him to understand that it was concerning just how expensive his mistakes were getting, he'd wave it off as it's not like we can't afford it. I love him dearly, I just miss the person he was before we had a child. The one I could trust and rely on. Did I screw this up forever? Was I being too harsh on his mistakes? Am I missing something? Am I the a-hole?